You are listening to the FORSCOM Frontline, bringing you to our soldiers on the front lines of readiness.
Welcome to the FORSCOM Frontline. I'm Jeannie, and I'll be your host today. The Army recently celebrated its birthday with a cake-cutting ceremony, and during the event, we had the DCG, the Command Sergeant Major, along with the longest-serving civilian and longest-serving soldier. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Zellous is our longest-serving soldier, and we are happy to have him with us today on this episode. So, hi, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Jeannie?
I'm doing great. It was great taking your picture last week. You guys had a lot of fun cutting that cake. I know you got a little messy with some of the cake all over your face.
Yeah, it was all right, though. The general said he said, make sure you have your eye pro on.
Okay. Did you get any in your eyes, or
I
was
didn't get any. It's just on my clothes. That was
just
all.
on your clothes? Okay,
Yes.
cool. See you. So, I was very excited to hear how long you had been serving, which is just shy of 40 years, correct? 39?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It is.
All right. So just give me a quick history on your service. When did you join? Where and why did you join?
Okay, well, again, I joined because I went to college in 1982, and I remember it was September 12th. My mom told me, don't come home dumber than you was when you left.
Great advice for moms, right?
So, right. And so flunking out of college, I understood what she meant by that. So as I was walking down the street, I said, I don't want to go back home because I know my mom's going to tell me now. Now you understand what I was talking about. So I saw a sign in the Army recruiting unit. It says $20,100 for college.
Wow.
So I asked the guy, how can I get that check? He said, just get a 50 on the ASVAB, and you're on your way to getting it.
And now what did you score on your ASVAB? I'm curious.
I scored a 52.
Just 52. You made it just in time, right?
And then
Okay.
it was crazy because Grenada was going on at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And so I asked him, how can I go fight in Grenada? He said, well, you got to have a combat arms MOS. I said, what's that? He said, those are guys on the front line. I said, okay, well, sign me up for that. He said, well, if you sign up for combat arms, you'll get an additional $8,000.
Okay.
I said, I get $8,000 to go to war.
So you started out in combat arms?
I did 13 Fox. I was a twisted fister.
Okay.
I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, May 10th, 1983.
Wow. Okay. And so you served, you said how long? 11, 13 years as?
As a 13 Fox?
Yes.
I served that until 1987, so that was my first 4 years of enlistment.
Okay. All right. And so did you switch MOSs
I
after
switched
that?
several times because after I got my money for college, I came out of the military to go to college. And while I was in college, a recruiter, he approached me, asked me if I wanted to serve in the National Guard. And I said, why not? So I became a 25 uniform, now taking pictures back in the days.
Okay.
So we had
okay.
a dark room and everything, so I learned how to develop film.
Oh, wow. I bet that was really neat because you don't see dark rooms or really photographers using, film anymore because everything is digital. So tell me a little bit about that experience because I'm curious. I always wanted to do that.
Okay, well, you have to have 3 trays. One tray, it'll darken the film. One tray will stop the film, then the other tray will wash the chemicals off. So they gave us what's called like a black bag. You put the film in the black bag, you unroll it into a canister, and then you pour a solution in the canister, and then you shake it in there for a few minutes, and then you go into the dark room, and you start setting it up. And once you get the film as developed, because if you keep it in there too long, they say it becomes overexposed, and you have to throw
Okay.
it away. So
right.
you have to do it just right to
Wow.
get your films.
Now, were you good at taking photos and developing
I was good
them?
at taking photos. I learned a lot from there because the first couple of photos I took, I had a lot of background noise in there, like cans and bottles and chip bags. So they said before you take your picture, you look at the background to make sure everything is clean, and so you can get a clean shot.
Okay. And now we have Photoshop and can edit all of that stuff out, right?
Right.
Now, do you still do any photography, like maybe on the side? I know you don't in your everyday job, so
No,
I'm just curious.
I did because I needed a job in the military, so that's why I did the 25 Sierra. But after that, I didn't have the interest because the equipment was too expensive. And going to college, you don't have a whole lot of money to spend on things that you enjoy doing.
Okay. So what did you do after you were a 25 uniform?
After that, again, I started with the Gulf War, so Patriots came out. So everybody had to become a 16 Tango. So
Okay.
I learned how to become a 16 Tango. And then they needed truck drivers, so I went to school to become a 88 Mike. I was a truck driver.
Okay. So Wow,
Yeah.
you've done a lot of things in the Army. Like I'm absolutely amazed. Now I want to backtrack for a second. What's a 16 Tango?
16 Tango is a Patriot launching missile. So you launch the missiles off the Patriot rocket. Remember when they were starting off with the Gulf War? They were shooting a lot of Scud missiles.
I was a child. I vaguely remember the Gulf War. I think my stepdad he was a Marine at the time and did Gulf War stuff. So I was probably what year was that? 19. I know it was in the 90s.
Right.
So probably early 90s. I was probably 10 to 12 during that time.
around.
So I don't remember too much about that. But
Okay.
yeah, tell me more about launching the missile.
Well, you go to class and learn how to do it, and it's quick. It's just because the war was going on, the training was condensed. So that means like it was 4 weeks. You go there, they show you the buttons, they show you how to track the missiles, and then hit the buttons to try to catch the missiles.
Okay.
And so.
And then after that, you became a truck driver.
Right. Because
Okay.
I got alert orders that we was getting ready to go to war. Of course, it was over within 100 hours. So we got all the way out to California. They said the war is over, so they sent us back home.
Okay.
And then I said to myself, will I ever get to war?
Well, did you ever?
Oh,
get
yeah,
to war?
it was crazy how that happened.
Okay. now I'm intrigued. Tell me
All right.
a little bit about
So,
how you went to war.
I'm going to give you a short history of it. So after I got out of college and I did that, got ready to go to war, I wanted to become an officer. And so I tried to go through the Army OCS program. The Army said it was full at the time, I guess because the war was downsizing and everything was full. So then the Marine Corps said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And so
Okay.
I had to go to Marine Corps OCS, which was 10 weeks up at Quantico. I finished that, and then from there I went to TBS, which was 23 weeks. And no matter when you go, you're going to hit the wintertime in Virginia. And I didn't know how cold it gets in Virginia because you got the Potomac Mill River there, and you got the ice coming off of it.
Yeah.
So after I finished that, I became a signal officer. And finishing my Marine career, I wanted to come back to the Army because I'm more of an Army guy than I am a Marine.
Okay. So how long were you in the Marine Corps?
4 years.
4
And
years.
remember I said I joined November 10th, 1983?
Yes.
So my OSO, that's my officer selection officer for the Marine Corps, he asked me, you know what day November 10th is? I said, yes, that's the day I joined the Army. He said, no, that's the Marine Corps birthday.
Okay.
I said, so I guess I was destined to become a Marine because I joined the Army on that day.
Well, and then you left the Marine Corps and you came back to the Army. How long was that gap between?
It was probably about 3 to 4 years because when I came back to the Army, they didn't have any officer slots again. So they brought me in as a chaplain and they sent me to Special Forces. I was into a Special Forces unit.
Okay, so now you're a chaplain and you're Special Forces.
I'm trying to become Special
Trying
Forces.
to become Special Forces. Okay, but you were a chaplain.
I was a chaplain's assistant.
Okay.
So, of course, the chaplains can't carry a weapon.
Right.
So I was going to be his weapon carrier for him.
Okay.
And as going through the program, they said, hey, we got one slot for OCS. And I told them I already went through OCS in the Marine Corps. And they said, well, that don't count.
Oh.
So they made me go back through the Army's OCS program, which, if you've ever been through Marine Corps training, the Army training is not as intense as it was in the Marine Corps.
Okay. My husband was actually a first sergeant at OCS.
Okay, what
several
year?
years ago. We were at Fort Benning, now Fort Moore, from 2010 to 2014. So he would have been OCS first sergeant from 2012 to 2014.
Okay, well,
So.
I graduated 2003, so he was.
Oh, yeah.
You know the crazy thing about it. I know. I told you 39 years.
I know, 39 years. Okay, so now we're through OCS.
But you want to
Okay.
know about truck driving. I know I jump around.
Oh, no, you are fine because this is fascinating of all the things that you have done in your 39 years. So I'm kind of glad we skipped over that, but wow. So now you get through OCS.
I get through OCS.
Okay, where did you go from there?
You
What was
click-
your MOS?
Of course, they needed more infantry officers. I wanted to support because I've done combat arms, so I wanted combat support at that time.
Okay.
So I lowballed it. It's what you have to be in a straw pool. So I got low enough just so I can get to the next round, and the round that opened up was quartermaster. So I became a quartermaster officer,
Okay.
and I went back to Fort Lee, Virginia. Well, when it was called Fort Lee, Virginia.
Okay.
So I went to Fort Lee, Virginia. And what's ironic about that, I was in the 249th Quartermaster Battalion there, and the Army's birthday was 249th this year.
Wow. Okay.
So a lot of similarities.
So is that where we're at now? Like you're still quartermaster?
Yeah,
Or?
well, as a captain, you become logistics.
Right.
So after you move through that, but you become a logistical officer. Now, back while I was saying my truck driver, my first company command, I took over a transportation company.
Okay, so you being a truck driver kind of played into now your command time as an officer.
Right, and I didn't know I was going to become a transportation commander, but that's the unit that opened up for me.
Okay, and what unit did you command?
It's 1177 Transportation Company.
Okay, and where was that at?
And that was in LaGrange, Georgia. It was a National Guard unit.
Okay.
And the crazy thing about that, all my soldiers challenged. When I took over, I was the first lieutenant getting ready to make captain. And they said, we got this buck lieutenant, don't know anything about trucks. So we had a truck rodeo. And in the truck rodeo, you drive several obstacles, you do the straight line back. And so one of my soldiers challenged me because they was trying to see who had the fastest time.
I bet they did. And I bet you showed them, didn't you?
So they said, watch, you going to run over every cone out there. It was only one soldier beat me. And after I got out there, I slammed the truck. I said, who's next?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And so what did your soldiers think after that?
They was impressed. They was like,
okay.
For a lieutenant, you got skills. I said, I wasn't always a lieutenant.
That's
I used to be in the trenches with y'all.
Okay, so now you've been logistics since
2003.
2003. So that's how you're finishing out your career because you're going to retire.
Yes, ma'am.
Soon.
July 31st,
like
2024.
In the next month. Okay.
Yes,
and so in total, you will have spent 39 years and how many months?
Well, they said 4 months and 15 days. That's what's on my on my 214.
All right. So just shy of 40 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have had an incredible 4 decades. I mean, just from each of your MOSs, from joining the Army to getting out to joining the Marine Corps to coming back in. Now, I know you said there were some gaps in between.
Yes, ma'am.
The Marine Corps, the Army, and whatnot. What did you do when you weren't in the military?
I became a teacher. I went to college. I went to college. I wanted to become an engineer. I went to UH, and I was fortunate enough to get a basketball scholarship to play for them.
Okay.
So
and you're a pretty tall dude. 6'3",
6'4".
I knew it. As soon as I saw you the first time, I was like, gosh, he's really tall.
Yes, ma'am.
So you played basketball.
And I was studying to become an engineer. But I always remember my math teacher told me from high school, she told me I'll become a great math teacher. And I was like, me being the dumbest one in math class?
Let me guess, you became a math teacher.
I became a
You
math
became
teacher.
a math teacher. So how long did you teach? Was it elementary, middle, high school?
It was middle and high school. And
Okay.
For some reason, people see for being black and being in the military, they say, well, you got to handle the roughest kids. And I told them, not everybody in the military is a drill sergeant.
That's right.
So they stick me into the roughest schools. And luckily, I had friends that helped me to navigate the students. Because when you first start teaching, students are rough on you.
Yeah.
So.
I've worked for a school district before. I know how them kids can be. So where did you teach at?
I taught in several states. I taught in Virginia because I was getting out the Marine Corps in Virginia. I taught in Virginia at Washington Lee High School. That was in Montrose, Virginia. Then I came down and taught in Birmingham City Schools for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And that was my toughest challenge. I taught 8th graders there. And I'll never forget, I had a principal, and I love her to death for it. I would write a kid up. She would put on there, contact the parent. And I write on there, phone disconnected. She write back, contact the parent.
Well, so how did you contact the parent?
I had to go to their house.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so can you imagine a teacher pulling up in your neighborhood?
No, I just can't imagine. So in total, how long were you a school teacher?
Off and on, I said roughly 20 years.
Oh, wow. In conjunction with your
being in the military.
Being in the military.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
What would you say is the biggest changes that you've seen since joining 1983 and about to retire in 2024? I mean, from active duty, Marine Corps, reserves, what have you seen over the last 40 years, like the difference, like the transitions?
I would say the discipline, the way we was disciplined in basic training. I never forget our drill sergeant, and our motto was more sweat in training, less blood in combat. Drive on, Bravo 7, drive on. So we can wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning if the drill sergeants felt we didn't do a certain task right, and we run through that obstacle again. He said, I'm going to train y'all or I'm going to send y'all home, but I never let nobody go overseas unprepared. And now I hear they have stress cards, so if the drill sergeants are too rough on them, they get to hold up their stress card and say, I need a timeout.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, I can see that. So, discipline. So that's like probably the biggest thing you've seen change. Has there been anything else? I know you've probably worn 10 different uniforms in the last 40 years.
I know.
Between all the different changes of the Army and then a Marine Corps uniform, and you wore the civilian uniform as a school teacher and stuff. So I'm curious though, because now I'm thinking back to all of these jobs that you have, and we've talked that you taught in Virginia, you taught in Alabama. Where did you get to go while you were in the military? Did you get to go to any cool locations?
Yes, ma'am. I'll never forget Captain Dillard. Well, at the time, it was Captain Dillard. I was getting ready to graduate from OBC, and he called me. He said, hey, Lieutenant, I need some slots for lieutenants, and we never get deployed. So he said, you ought to join my unit. I said, well, sir, I got a unit somewhere else. He said, you don't want to go to that unit. You don't want to sit at a battalion. You want to come down to the company. You want to get your feet wet. I said, Roger, sir, because he sounds so convincing on the telephone. Mm-hmm. So we graduated December 2003. January of 2004, I had deployment orders going to Iraq.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Captain Dillon, sir, I thought you said we never get deployed. He said, I didn't know we was getting deployed either. But it came down the pipeline. I said, sir, you knew. But I'm thankful for him to be my company commander, because in Iraq, I was supposed to be the SSA commander. I was just going to guard a warehouse. But once I got to Kuwait, he said, I need a transportation platoon leader. And guess who I got stuck as transportation?
That was you.
Yes, ma'am.
With all of your experience in transportation. So I'm surprised you're not still in transportation.
I know.
Yeah. So Iraq, Kuwait were were those the only places?
Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan. But once I went to Iraq, I did convoy, so I went all the way up as far as Anaconda, and then far south back down to Kuwait. We also went out to Taji, well not Taji, but TQ, Al-Assad. That was out in the west, and that was close to the Syria border. So we got a chance to see a lot of Iraq. I crossed the Tigris and the Euphrates River. I went to Babylon. And I also saw Ziggurat. That was the childhood home of Abraham.
Oh, wow.
That was right down there in Talil.
Okay.
So I saw a lot of biblical perspectives. Then once I went to Kuwait on my last mission, I got a chance to go to Jordan. And I stepped in the Jordan Sea.
Wow.
And then we went swimming in the Dead Sea. And we went on Mount Nebo, where Moses made his last journey.
So you've had some really cool experiences.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Okay. So when you walked in with a Rubik's Cube.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, and you kind of told me a little bit about it, and I think it kind of ties into what we've been talking about. So tell me why you brought in a Rubik's Cube.
Well, because to me, the Rubik's Cube symbolized my career. In the beginning, I was a private. It's all mixed up. You don't know what path you want to take. You just you follow the drill sergeant's instructions. And then from there, once the drill sergeants turn you loose, you go to your unit and you follow your supervisor's instructions. Then over time, you start to see the Army getting a little clearer or becoming in focus. And just like this Rubik's Cube, as you see, it's all mixed up, but in a few moments, it can all be put together as everything showing the same. So like if you can go ahead and get the top together.
I could never do one of these. I could never figure it out.
This was back in 1982 when it first came out.
My son always did them, but I could never figure them out.
So now you get the tops together. Then you can go ahead and put the sides together.
And then in the end, you have a complete career.
Yeah, complete. You have 39 years of faithful service.
Okay. So, what is there anything that you would say to the upcoming generations of soldiers based on your, almost 40 years of service?
I would always say get you a mentor. That was some of the areas I lacked in. Until I got me a mentor, it was hard to try to figure out how to navigate in the military. And sometimes you don't have to get a mentor in your MOS. You can just get somebody that you can have a good conversation with and that they can lead you in a positive direction. Because you have to have a lot of your military schooling. And a lot of times the soldiers don't want to go to military schools. But in order to get promoted, you want to be proficient in your job. You'll have to go to that school.
Okay. So you're talking about schooling. What about college education? Because I know there's a lot of soldiers that join, straight out of high school,
Right.
and because they don't want to go to college. Now, I know that's what you did, and then you eventually went to college.
Yes, ma'am.
And is this something that you recommend them do, or
Yes, ma'am.
what are your feelings on that?
I said take advantage. The government gives you a lot of options. You get your TA, your tuition assistance. Use that before you use your GI Bill because it can pay for a lot of classes, especially your basic classes like your English, your math, your history. You want to try to knock those out if you're planning on doing 20 years or you planning on doing your first enlistment. Knock those courses out so when you do go to college, you can start focusing in on your major and then try to get as many degrees as you possibly can because the military was fortunate enough to let me, and I just achieved my doctorate this January.
Oh, so I should be calling you Dr. Zellous?
Well, I'm still Lieutenant Colonel right now, but yes.
So, with that being said, now you have a doctorate. What are you going to do post-Army? Because now you're retiring. And after 40 years of bouncing around from MOSs and jobs and this and that, you've completed bachelor's, master's, and now a doctorate.
Yes,
What's next for Lieutenant Colonel retired / Dr. Zellous?
Thank you, ma'am. Well, I'm going back into the high school. I have a passion for teaching math. I love math.
Okay.
So although I wasn't the brightest one when I was in high school, over time I developed the skills. And I'm sure you heard it, math is one of the languages that is universal spoken.
It is. It is absolutely a universal language that I don't speak very well. So I applaud you for going into the school system. Now, when I was growing up, I did what I consider old school basic math. Now, when my kids, who are now 18 and my son will be 22 here in a couple of days, they did Common Core. Are you going to be teaching Common Core math, or are you going to be teaching like real old school math?
Well, in Georgia, they came away from Common Core, so they're going back to old school math.
That's amazing.
I know I've taught Common Core for a while, which I didn't think it was a good idea because they wanted you to do, to me, it was more of an English skill. They wanted you to write out and analyze how you did your problem instead of speaking it out. So what I always had students do, we just work basic problems. You fold your paper in half, you do it, and then you write down how did you do it in your mind. So I can give you any problem. You can look at the steps because it's got to make sense to you. The steps that you did to find the answer, and then you can do it again.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to math, we were drilled in, memorization. This is, 1 + 1 = 2, 2 × 2 = 4. That was drilled into our heads. But I do think that some kids need more of a language problem. I remember having word problems, and trying to figure out Susie had 5 apples and Sally had 4. And, some people learn better that way. Now, are you going to be teaching both, or are you just going to leave it up to them of however they come to the conclusion of their own?
Well, I differentiate my instruction. So I'd figure out if you're more of a kinesthetic person or you're more tactile, I try to find ways to get you engaged so you can learn at your level. Because at the end of the day, I want you to go off to college, and I want you to be successful, not only in math, but in all your college courses, so you can earn your degree. And I want you to be comfortable in the knowledge that you've gained by coming through one of my classes.
I bet you're going to be an amazing teacher.
That's
Now, what school are you going to be teaching at?
Lithonia High School. It's in DeKalb County.
Okay. And what city is that? You said Georgia, right?
It's in Lithonia, Georgia.
Lithonia. Okay.
Outside of Stone Mountain.
I know where that is. I spent some time at Fort Benning /
Okay.
Fort Moore. So my kids went to school in Phoenix City, Alabama. Okay. So I know where Lithonia is out in Georgia.
Yes,
so is is there anything else that you want to say that would, kind of sum up your time in the military, advice, anything that you want to give to our audience?
Yeah, I always tell folks, if you have the opportunity to become a mentor, not in just your neighborhood, but be a mentor wherever you go. Go to church, find you good people to mentor, and also be receptive of being mentored as well, because everybody needs someone to hold them and help them to achieve their dreams.
And is that what you attribute the success of your career to, as a mentor?
And I had a lot of great mentors. Like I said, Captain Dillard at the time, when he told me he never got deployed, but once we got there, I tell you, having to run the convoy for your first time is a scary feeling. Having the IED go off, it increases your fear. But he always told me, he said, just know your soldier, know how to train them, and be prepared for the unexpected. And,
Absolutely.
And I told him, for that, I mean, he got me out a lot of trouble, because some days we get in firefights. Battalion want to know what's going on the radio. I tell them I got to command what's on the ground. When I get back, it takes me some time to unwind, but battalion want to drill me right then and there. So I would go to Captain Dillard. I said, hey, sir, just give me about an hour or two just to settle my nerves, and then I can come. He said, all right, go into the MWR, take a load off, and then I'll come get you when I think you're ready.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was a great mentor to me, even to this day.
I love it. Well, you have lived a very fascinating life and endured an amazing career in the military. And I know here at FORSCOM, on behalf of everyone here, we wish you the best of luck in all of your future endeavors, with your retirement on July 31st.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to say thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. And I've really enjoyed having you on our show today.
Oh, yes, ma'am. It was a pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity.
Absolutely. No problem. So as of August 1st, you'll be Dr. Zellous,
Yes, ma'am.
and no longer the logistics officer for future operations in the FORSCOM G4, correct?
Correct.
All right. So until next time, we'll see you on the front line.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.